veteransradio.com. netrootsradio.com.
Okay, Thursday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the West Coast of the contiguous United States of America. Oh, if it's Thursday on the After Show, thank God it's Giovedi. Because we honor the great God Joe, because Thursday is truly the gateway to the weekend.
Heck yeah.
Speaking of which, it's Easter weekend, Wink. I guess this is, I don't know, nice Thursday. Then we have Good Friday.
Yep.
So this must be nice Thursday. How are you doing?
Yep, something like that, yeah.
How are you doing?
I know my mom especially went to church on Thursday, Easter week, Thursday, and, I know it's something special for at least for the Easter week here. But, off the top of my head, I can't think of what they officially called it or whatever. But, yeah, close enough. What do we got here? We got 45 degrees and sunshine, which is amazing.
Nice.
And it's going up to like 52 or 3, too, so it's going to be in the lower 50s today, which is kind of a nice day here anyway. So we'll take that, and I might get out and do a little something today, a little yard work at least. Mind to get the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com, scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat, so click that and join us there.
And to the leftish of the chat room link are the links to the contribute, donate buttons. And we, just as a reminder, we're in a mini fund drive here to upgrade hardware and software. And we're unable to do it without you, so thank you for your generosity.
Yep.
Also, after-show podcasts can be had by way of Spreaker. Spreaker.
Yeah.
As the raw data file, and then the perfected file on Podbean and iTunes and the other platforms comes a bit after that. Sometimes it comes before.
Right.
But we'll have those on the appropriate show notes and on Blogger and also at Daily Coz. So thank you for listening to that. It's yes, thank you. So here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, let's see if anything's changed here. It is almost 40 degrees.
There you go.
Feels like almost 40 degrees, Weather Underground says. We're going to be a tad cooler than yesterday. Let's see. Cloudy with showers, thunder possible, high of 54, winds out of the west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. And then pretty much the same tomorrow. We're in our spring system here. So
another couple of weeks we'll be there too. We're not too far behind at this point.
Yeah, my azaleas and my camellias and my rhodies are all popping right now. It's quite nice. And
really nice.
My plum tree is all red with leaves, and the nandinas are all red and they're healthy and whatnot. And I've got other specimens I need to get into the ground. But I will. I'll get to it eventually. Oh, let's see. New York City is 50 degrees and clear. San Francisco is 54, mostly cloudy. London is 55, mostly cloudy. Paris is 59, mostly cloudy. And Rome is 64 with scattered clouds. And let's not forget Los Angeles. It is 59 and clear.
Yeah.
So that takes us around the world, and so there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, wink once again, we're not burned to a nuclear crisp, so
Right.
we might as well glory once again in being alive. It's really sad watching Trump get up to speed on, like, I don't know, International Government 101. Talks to the Chinese, goes, wow, I went in there thinking, this is like the easiest thing in the world. And I don't know, Chinese happen to be the last people talking to me, and now I'm listening to them. And it's a lot more complex than anyone knew. So whenever he says something is more than anyone knew, it means more than what he knew.
Right.
But people that know less than him voted for him.
Oh, yeah.
But don't insult him, Wink. Just don't you dare.
Right.
Jesus. Okay, well, that's where we are. The artist for the bull on Wall Street wants the girl statue, the Defiance girl, to just get out of here. It's taken away from my vision.
Man, that's a great statue too. If anybody,
both of them.
If you haven't taken a look at that yet, go take a look at it because it's quite the statue. It really is.
No, you're talking about the bull.
The little girl.
Yes.
Yeah, she's yeah. I mean, somebody did a nice job with that.
And I actually think both complement each other.
Yeah, they do. They actually do. Yeah.
That's just me, I have a different artistic bent or understanding. Once it is no longer in your hands, meaning gets attached to it independent from what you wanted or thought it would be. And I'm sorry, no matter what you do, and I've had this experience before, what you do to go out there and say, well, this was my, my original intention, and this is how it should always be. And the viewer will say, I don't know, it means something to me that's a little different than you, but you don't know anything about me, and I only know about me, and I'm attaching meaning. And that's what art is supposed to do. Not so much to convey. I mean, it does both, of course. But I would almost say that the longevity of what makes art is when people are able to attach meaning to it independent of what the artist intended. So I would think that maybe this guy's more interested in commerce rather than art.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
There's a big difference there. But, I'm a romantic. Let's see. Boy, wink. They're still going after healthcare.
Yeah.
They're still, oh, God.
That's pretty much futile, but yeah, they're trying.
And when it's Easter, which also, comes around Passover, this is the season for Hitler comparisons.
Right.
All right, we got to remember that. I mean,
right.
Everybody's like astounded. All these Hitler comparisons. Well, it's Passover. That's when the Holocaust deniers come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Every year, it's like they were all cooped up all winter, and then here comes spring with Passover and Easter, and they come out and they go, "Oh my God, the globalists are trying to take us over." And by globalists, I mean Jews. So. And their fellow travelers, which I must admit I may be one of. So there. So, but yeah, I mean, Abraham Lincoln is worse than Hitler, according to a North Carolina legislator.
Yeah.
And why? Because apparently Abraham Lincoln was directly responsible for 800,000 American deaths.
Yeah.
Now, we don't count all the slaves that were essentially, murdered by working them to death.
Right.
But they weren't really Americans. Well, 3/5. Okay. This is the world we live in now. Sean Spicer, like I said before, no one who was ever raised in America calls a Nazi death camp a Holocaust center. No one. Now, he might have heard it from one of his handlers. And he doesn't even know who his handler was. That's how effective it works, Wink.
Right.
All right. These are the issues we will be attending to today. Oh, this is nice. Inspectors found 13 health violations at Mar-a-Lago just days before the Japanese Prime Minister's visit. 13, Wink.
Yeah.
Normally that would cause an establishment to be shut down. And when you got the Japanese Prime Minister coming into town, do you really want him to get sick like the first Bush did when he went to Japan? Fortunately, he didn't. But I don't know. I've been in the restaurant biz. 13 violations? Eee. I think even if I was the owner, they would have fired me. The U.S. government is sued over its plan to kill native cougars and bears in Colorado. Damn cougars and bears taking away the mule deer so the Trump boys can come up there and shoot them by remote control, probably. And the first lawsuit is filed over Trump's border wall. On the last half, we report that Trump wants to slash $9 billion, that's billion with a B, Wink, from the Department of Education, while at the same time spending a staggering $1 million a month on the security detail for Betsy DeVos. You know, Scott Pruitt is budgeted like 24 around-the-clock security detail because he fears, and this was from his statement, he fears radical leftist Democrats and staff inside the EPA itself. And so he has to have a round-the-clock security detail. Betsy DeVos has to have, you know why she has to have a security detail? Because every time she goes to a school, there are protesters there.
Right.
You know, like 5 or 6 parents from the school saying, we don't think you're a good Department of Education secretary. And apparently that is so threatening, they have to spend $1 million a month, Wink. $1 million a month. But yes, let's throw away some poor kid's lunch because he didn't have enough money.
Right. Yeah.
And Mississippi hovers near a 100% rejection rate of all people applying for welfare, and the state won't explain why. All that plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Coast community calendar and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his ever so subtle East Coastal elitism. That's right. He can add 2 and 2 equals 4 and then another 2 equals 6. What an elitist. And his name is Wink. And this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast. And I don't know. You can determine how grandiose my elitism is. And my name is Justice, and we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in the particular and peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby? Okay. I think even here at Netroots Radio, we are just like months away from being able to do the digitally enhanced holographic dialogue between Columbo and Kojak.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, we used to do that actually around the campfire.
Right.
In a certain way, it wasn't holographic, but what we would do is that we would, you know, for instance, like you take a line from Kojak and then you would respond with a line from Columbo. And we used to do that with all sorts of different movies. We used to do it with Jack Nicholson. Just all of his movies. And we would make up a new dialogue predicated upon these, you know, takeaway lines from all of his different movies.
Oh, heck yeah.
And we would have such a grand time.
There's some good lines out there.
Yeah, you know, since we weren't out there, you know, hunting animals, we had to tell a war story somehow. And we did.
Right.
Because that's what camping is all about. At least how the artist originally intended. Let's get into these issues because, well, it is Thursday, and we don't have all day. 13 health violations at Mar-a-Lago went just before Abe comes to visit.
Right.
And this is out of the Miami Herald by Jose Lambert. Just days before the state visit of Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's Palm Beach private club, Florida restaurant inspectors found potentially dangerous raw fish and cited the club for storing food in 2 broken down coolers. Inspectors found 13 violations at the Fancy Club's kitchen, according to a recently published report. A record for an institution that charges $200,000 in initiation fees. 3 of the violations were deemed high priority, meaning they could allow the presence of illness-causing bacteria on plates served in the dining room. According to their latest visit to the club on January 26th, state inspectors decided Mar-a-Lago's kitchen did not meet the minimum standards. You know, this is all a problem with overregulation, Wink. I mean, the argument about that Asian doctor getting the crap beat out of him is because of overregulation. The airlines are forced into beating the crap out of him because they're just regulated too much.
Right.
And now we have these do-gooders, probably leftist Democrat do-gooders, coming in saying bacteria is on the plate. Now, look, maybe some old person with a compromised immune system might get impacted, but how many of those are going to be at Mar-a-Lago? Right. And if they do, they got enough money to probably go, get well. And if they don't, well, there's an inheritance that someone's going to collect. And so it just keeps pushing the money through the economy, and that's a good thing.
Right.
3 of the high priority according, but they had a field day with elements that could give members of the high-class club and foreign dignitaries some pause. For instance, fish designed to be served raw or undercooked. You mean sushi? Is that what you mean? Come on. The inspection report reads, had not undergone proper parasite destruction. Kitchen staffers were ordered to cook the fish immediately or throw it out. In 2 of the club's coolers. Now, I should mention once again, one way that you can kill parasites is by freezing the fish. The other way is by cooking it. And I've managed a few sushi establishments before, and I've served sushi in the house from being, having a stepdad who's a Nisei. Passed now, but so to not flash freeze the fish is stupid. I'm just saying. I don't understand it. In 2 of the club's coolers, inspectors found that raw meats that should have been stored at 41 degrees were were much too warm and potentially dangerous. The chicken was 49 degrees. Duck clocked in at 50 degrees, and raw beef was 50 degrees. The winner, ham, at 57 degrees. You really don't want trichinoses to be growing at 57 degrees. Not a good thing. Chicken was at 49 degrees, almost 50 degrees a week. Now, the raw beef at 50 degrees, you could just say, we were just aging it. But the ham, almost 60 degrees week.
Right.
Yeah. The club was cited for not maintaining the coolers in proper working order and was ordered to have them emptied immediately and repaired. The other violations weren't so serious. Now, I need to speak with this reporter a little bit, because owning a restaurant, being chef owner, these next, what they consider to be not so serious, I consider to be, up there with the ham at almost 60 degrees. So let's go through what this is considered. Water at the sink where employees wash their hands was too cold to sanitize hands. In other words, they weren't washing their hands in hot water, Wink.
Right.
And it could have been that it wasn't piped in, or they had it turned off, or any number of reasons. And Mar-a-Lago was also written up for keeping rusted shelves in sidewalk and coolers. The problem that you have with rusted shelves is that that's indicative of a leak somewhere in which pathogens can be existing in the little droplets of whatever liquid there is that is causing the rust. So when you see rust, you're thinking pathogen. In the past, Trump has spent most weekends at the club, but so far this year, let's see. I'm sorry. In the past, Trump, who has spent most weekends at the club so far this year and hosted Chinese leader Xi Jinping there just last weekend, was often involved personally in the day-to-day operations. It wasn't rare to see him check out the kitchen and give directions to the club's floor personnel. Like, that hostess is too ugly for a Trump establishment. Get rid of her now. Get someone beautiful. And that happens a lot in Trump establishments, by the way. At the time, Mar-a-Lago passed inspections with flying colors, with 1 or 2 violations a year at the most. Excuse me? No violations in a year is passing with flying colors, not 1 or 2. Unbelievable, Wink. I can't tell you how many health and safety violations or inspections that came through the various places I worked at and was responsible for. And we passed with flying colors, meaning we didn't have any violations.
There you go.
1 or 2 a year? Oh, my God. But as Trump jumped into presidential politics, so did the number of health violations. There were 11 last year compared to just 2 in 2015. So they went from a couple of violations a year, which is astoundingly bad in the business, I have to tell you. Now, of course, there are dive places that probably have that as a badge of honor. But a place that expects $200,000 initiation fees, right, they usually call that fine dining.
Yep.
And you don't really want to get sick at fine dining. All right. General Manager Bernd Lemke did not return calls for comment. Yep. Yeah, Trump is notorious also for refusing to hire locals at his establishment. He has to get visas, HB1 visas for his workers. He insists. Because Americans just won't work. They just won't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We've actually discussed this before in the after show. There are many employment agencies in all the places in which Trump has establishments in America who are overwhelmed with people trying to get jobs at Trump establishments, and they can't. So I'm just saying, it is hypocrisy. This next article is out of Reuters. U.S. government sued over outrageous plan to kill native cougars and bears in Colorado. Wildlife conservation groups sued the U.S. government on Wednesday, seeking to halt a plan to trap and kill as many as 120 mountain lions and black bears in Colorado in a bid to stem declines in populations of mule deer favored by hunters. Yeah. It's the few predators out there that's decimating their herd, Wink, in Colorado. Right. What could the real reason be? What might the real reason be? Well, let's go and find out. The lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court in Denver accuses the Wildlife Services Agency, a branch of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, of violating federal law by failing to fully assess potential impacts of the predator control plan on other native wildlife. The same agency gained a measure of notoriety after one of its spring-loaded cyanide bombs. Wink, they kill coyotes and cougars and bears with cyanide bombs. I mean, even Hitler didn't use chemical weapons on his wildlife.
Right.
And also used on what they call other nuisance animals. Then that spring-loaded cyanide bomb went off in the hands of a 14-year-old Idaho boy in this March. injuring the youth and killing his pet dog. Well, the dog looked like a nuisance animal. Wednesday's lawsuit cites scientific research. Oops, that was their first mistake, Wink.
Right.
You can't cite scientific research with this group. You got to go and tell them how you feel.
Exactly.
Showing that habitat loss, here it is, from oil and gas development, not natural predators, is mostly to blame for Colorado's plunging mule deer numbers. Look, it feels like the predator animals are the ones killing them, Wink. It doesn't really feel like the oil and gas industry has anything to do with it. I mean, because we're making money with them.
Right.
How could they be responsible? Impossible. Leftist Democrats. The idea of using U.S. taxpayer money to kill native wildlife on public lands is outrageous, said Matthew Bishop, an attorney for the Western Environmental Law Center, a nonprofit firm representing conservation groups in the lawsuit. The case was brought by the Center for Biological Diversity and Wild Earth Guardians. They are asking a U.S. judge to bar wildlife services from implementing the plan before the agency thoroughly studies the likely consequences for the protected Canada lynx and other wildlife, as well as for the environment as a whole. You know, when you poison an animal, another animal comes and eats it, and then they get poisoned too. Isn't that nice? Next thing you know, the people are scratching in the streets because, well, you know, all the fleas jumped off the dead animals and jumped on you. Oops. Wildlife spokesman declined to comment on the pending litigation. They do that a lot, you know, Wink?
Right.
Okay. The federal lawsuit also contests various lethal strategies wildlife services employs to remove animals believed to be harassing or harming livestock. And saying such methods endanger other wildlife than the animals that are targeted. Among those, this is gross, foothold traps, body crushing traps, aerial gunning, that's the one that the Trump bros really love, and the use of toxic gas cartridges to spray animals with sodium cyanide or to emit carbon monoxide into wildlife dens. Even Pol Pot didn't use chemical weapons on his wildlife.
Right.
Well, the Wildlife Services on Monday suspended use of the spring-loaded M44 cyanide canisters in Idaho after last month's an accident involving the boy and his dog. Nuisance animals, both of them, Wink. What were they doing there fooling around with our cyanide canister, huh? They're such a nuisance. They deserved it. They may have. First lawsuit filed against Trump's border wall is also being filed by environmental groups. Wink. This is by Ishani Roy out of the International Business Times. Even before concrete details, no pun intended there, concrete details. Is that unreinforced concrete details? I think it would be. Affectionately known as mob cement, by the way.
Exactly.
Donald Trump's proposed wall along the U.S.-Mexico border could be released from the Trump administration. It already faces a legal challenge. The Center for Biological Diversity, that's the same group that's suing in Colorado. Not-for-profit based in Arizona, which works to protect endangered species, filed the lawsuit yesterday. Boy, they were busy yesterday. The group claims the construction of a barrier from San Diego, from where the construction would start, to Texas. That's not very far. I thought it was supposed to go all the way to, Florida. Will have disastrous impacts on animals such as jaguars, wolves, and more than 100 other species in the border region. Trump's border wall will divide and destroy the incredible communities and wild landscapes along the border. This is good that they're doing this, but the only lawsuits that will really move this forward, Wink, are the ones where people are suing because of eminent domain and they're not getting the proper amount of money recompense
Yep.
for a taking. Really, wildlife doesn't have any value. I mean, it does, but in this administration, they just took that metric away. But fortunately, I think there may be a few judges left who haven't gone through the Federalist Society brainwashing schools. And you never know. You never know. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar, and actually have a little bit of comprehensive and in-depth reporting coming up for the last half. So you are listening to the After Show on Nevers Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
In an insightful song about outlaws, Woody Guthrie wrote this verse. As through this world I travel, I see lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a 6-gun, some with a fountain pen. The fountain pens are doing the serious stealing these days. For example, while you would get hard time in prison for robbing a bank at gunpoint, bankers who rob customers with a flick of their fountain pens or a click of their computer mouse get multi-million-dollar payouts. They usually escape their crimes unpunished, but not unscathed. After all, it's their constant, egregious, gluttonous thievery that has made banker a 4-letter word in America, synonymous with immoral, self-serving behavior. For example, Wells Fargo, our country's biggest consumer bank, has gotten away with paying some fines for stealing millions of dollars from customers in its notorious fake accounts scheme, but it has not escaped the wrath of the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia. This feisty order of nuns, which holds a block of Wells Fargo stock, has been embarrassed and are infuriated by the rank immorality of their bank's executives. They are pushing a shareholder's proposal demanding a full accounting of, quote, the root causes of the malicious fraud perpetrated on vulnerable depositors. Unsurprisingly, the bank's aloof and arrogant board of directors, which had silently presided over the fraud for years, opposes any such meaningful probe. This is Jim Hightower saying such recalcitrance only intensifies the public's outrage and cynicism toward out-of-control banksters. But the giant worries less about its public image than it does about the reality an in-depth investigation would expose, namely, that our nation's dominant banks have not only become too big to fail and too big to jail, but too big to manage and control. To stop that thievery, they must be broken up.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River. In the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Our crew, though I have to admit, they be of flesh and blood and are actual breathing, living, bleeding human beings. For our purposes, they are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the After Show, to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, and beyond.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
It's a thin line between hyperbole and superlative, just
right.
so you know. Today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated, as it is every Thursday, by Paradise 50. And he opens up the diary today about your favorite beaches. And do you have favorite beaches? I mean, I know New York looks at the beach a little bit different than we might on the West Coast.
Well, yeah, it's not like an ocean beach at all, but we got some really good lake beaches.
See, that's the thing, is here on the West Coast, we hear beach and we always think the ocean.
Yeah.
But when I would go and bale hay in the Midwest,
Yeah.
you know, like in the Dakotas,
Yep.
The beach was like the local river or a lake.
Right.
We're going to the beach.
Well, we have one of the Great Lakes. We're not too far from the Great Lakes.
Well,
so we do have a couple of great beaches on those Great Lakes, and one of them,
like
they're not very far away, about 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away.
That's
pretty
like
nice.
an inland.
I mean, you look out across the lake, you don't see the other side. So I mean, it's a big lake.
It's an inland sea almost, a freshwater inland sea. Yeah,
Yes.
well, my favorite beaches would be mostly on the west coast of the United States. I love the little beach at Muir Beach. I lived there at Muir Beach for quite a few years. Not a surfing beach necessarily. Not, the Muir Beach area is not really a surfing beach, but I love the little beach. It's nice. And if you've ever been to Muir Beach, you might know why I like the little beach. At least I did.
There you go.
Okay, I'll let you know. It's because it's a nude beach, and when I had like the perfect body, I had no problem exposing it. I would not take off my clothes now.
Yeah, yeah. And even to take a shower is kind of it's difficult.
And I hate it when people say, "Boy, you look pretty good for your age."
yeah, exactly.
Thanks. You mean I'm sagging all over, huh? Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
You look good for your age. So I will.
Yeah.
I will go to the little beach, but I don't think I will disrobe. No.
Yeah, Ricky in the chat says she lives on an island, so there's beaches everywhere where she lives.
There's beaches everywhere. I love that.
Everywhere she looks, there's a beach.
Now, there's some great beaches in Costa Rica that I surfed at. There's the beach. I'm just kind of bouncing around now. There's the beach below the bridge at Big Sur that is a great surfing spot.
Oh, there you go.
One might think that I would consider 15th Street at Newport Beach in Southern California, because that's like the hot spot. But there's too many people there. That whole stretch of beach, even up to Malibu, it's too tough. I did love going to the horse pasture, which is south of Dana Point. And that beach there at the horse pasture was a great surfing spot. Also a great scuba and skin diving spot. But that isn't overwhelmed by a lot of people, as we would call them, tourists. Even though somebody who comes from like 10 miles inland is a tourist, just so you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. That's how we defined them. So you wouldn't see very many tourists at the horse pasture because it was so difficult to get there. And but mostly the beaches north of Malibu on the California coast. I love the Oregon beaches, not for surfing, but because these old growth forests go right up to the edge of the ocean and fall in. It's really cool. I don't know. And you got to be careful because there are giant, what they call drift logs, and they can hurt you.
Yeah.
So, but Costa Rica, a lot of people don't think of Costa Rica very much, as a destination.
Right. But
once I discovered it, it was really lovely because there's the jungle right there and then these wonderful beaches. I should mention, though, the north beaches of Maui were great surfing spots. So I never went to that spot in Spain where they got like the 100-foot swells.
Right.
Never made that one. I mean, I looked at it from the bluff, but it was before I knew what it was. I mean, I was doing a grad project, writing a piece on Hemingway, and that was my project. And I wrangled a grant, and with the money, I was able to rent a car and drive from Lisbon, Portugal, all the way to the tip of the boot of Italy. And I would stop in these little fishing villages along the coast that Hemingway was known to have been in. As an aside, I would meet old men who were like little kids when Hemingway was there, and he was such a presence, they still remembered him. And but I do remember seeing that one beach where they have this enormous swell, and I recognize it as an enormous swell, but I didn't think about surfing, which I wouldn't have done because I would have been killed. But yeah, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, there's a place in northern France, more to the Atlantic side of the English Channel on the French coast, called La Tranche-sur-Mer, the scar or the trench at the sea. And those beaches along there, that's just, let's see, it would be east of the Normandy beaches. And
yeah,
I really like that. And now, of course, other people would say the south of France, Cannes and Nice. And those are great, lovely, warm beaches. But there's something about the wildness of those beaches along the English Channel that were alluring to me. So, okay.
You gotta love it. Yep.
All right. So new groups forming. Wisconsin Cossacks are beginning their group, and so Cosmail Chris the Colladem, if you'd like to join Wisconsin Co's. Navajo does maintain the event list here, so Cosmail her if you have any events that you'd like to let be known. Now, New York City Cossacks are going to be meeting up on Sunday, April 23rd, not this weekend, but the next, because Navajo is in town, and they will be meeting, as they always do, at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street. The cross street is Ludlow. In the Ludlow district, of course, at high noon, Cosmail Navajo to RSVP. The People's Climate March will be occurring on the 29th of April. And so there's a diary by Boatsy that gives a week of action. Oh, the week of action precedes the 429 People's Climate March. And so sign up for the historic People's Climate March in Washington, D.C., or for a sister march near you. And there are at least a dozen sister marches listed, so go to the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Diary for links to find out which one is near you and the one that you would like to attend. The Epic Glacier National Park meetup, number 3, will be occurring on June 30th through July 2nd. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa are organizing. Cosmail them. There is a important diary for important planning details that you should go over. And the annual Cheers and Jeers Netroots Nation dinner will be occurring in Atlanta for Netroots Nation on Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. Cosmail Navajo to RSVP a seat. She's getting a sizable number already, and they're probably getting close to picking a venue. And when they do, you'll know where that location is. So that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar for the 13th of April of 2017.
Thursday. Get your taxes in.
Thursday the 13th. No, you get a little grace. You can go after now.
Ah, there you go.
I believe you have till Monday.
Awesome.
There you go. Yep. Friday the 14th is luckier than you would think Thursday the 13th is.
Yeah.
But Thursday the 13th has no unlucky attachment to it. So we should be okay today, Wink.
Right.
We should. Oh, when we were talking to Angie yesterday about ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yep.
And I was just I think people didn't realize I was joking when I was talking about Korea's ICBMs, because they probably don't have any, intercontinental.
Right.
But if you move a platform closer to where you want to go, you might get to that other continent. It doesn't make an ICBM. I was kind of joking about their, actually there was a report that they put a nuclear device in some tunnel near the South Korean border. So they're able, with the technology they have, to get a nuclear device about 10 miles into a tunnel. They had to drive it there, but So for those who thought I was serious about Koreans' ICBMs, I was joking. I was joking about their abilities. But on the other hand, you joke about things like that, It's like, there's, they're just third world people. They could actually have enough technology to hurt. And we probably want to talk to them. I don't expect anything grand to occur immediately with North Korea. I mean, they do look at South Korea as, rebels. They don't even look at South Korea as another country.
Right.
They're a dissident area, and they got to be hewn into shape. But I prefer talk rather than bombs. I'm a romantic. Yep, I am. Okay, so we better get on these. These next stories actually have a bit of heft to them. Okay, this first article is by Alexandra Rosenman out of Alternet. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos has been met with angry mobs since her narrow confirmation in mid-February. As a result, the department is spending a staggering $1 million per month to keep her safe, according to the Washington Post. Keep her safe. These people, they're so divorced from America. They think that people protesting is some sort of terroristic threat instead of realizing it's a constitutional guaranteed right.
Yeah.
The U.S. Marshal Service is hiring nearly 24 people to guard her. The Education Secretary. She's so threatened. Wink.
Right.
Under an agreement signed in last month, DeVos will be under its protection through September, but she may use law enforcement agency services for the duration of her term. The Post report also noted that while the new outlay is a tiny fraction of the department's budget, it comes as the Trump administration has proposed slashing the spending plan by $9 billion, or 13.5%. So $12 million a year just on security for the top lady.
Right.
Well, that's creating jobs. Look at it that way, I guess, huh?
Oh, yeah.
The
Besides, they got it. They're billionaires. That family's got all kinds of cash.
The Education Secretary is the sole cabinet member who requires protection from the U.S. Marshal Service, according to the agency's spokeswoman, Lindsay Donahue. No cabinet member has required such protection in nearly a decade, though Pruitt has submitted a proposal to get round-the-clock security detail, though that is not in effect yet.
Right.
Right now it's DeVos, and now Pruitt is saying, hey, I'm pretty well threatened. I'm not even threatened, not only threatened by these terrorist Democrats.
Right.
But, the dangerous terrorists within this own agency. Environmental terrorists in this agency. I am threatened. Where do these guys get this from? Kiev.
Yeah.
As News One Now host Roland Martin pointed out on Monday, DeVos' stance on her charter schools and special education has caused protesters to show up at every school she visits. It's not like people are threatening her with a gun. They're not threatening her with a knife. What they are threatening her with is Trump losing an election, and she will be out of her quest to turn this into a theocratic private enterprise.
Right.
She wants to get rid of special education, Wink. It's mind-boggling. But there you go. Mississippi. This article is by Bryce Covert out of Think Progress. Mississippi is rejecting nearly all of the poor people who apply for welfare, and the state won't say why. Oh, and this is also with help by Josh Israel, Bryce Covert and Josh Israel. Last year, 11,717 low-income residents of Mississippi applied to get a meager government benefit to help them make ends meet. The state's welfare program, part of the Federal Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, otherwise known as TANF, gives a maximum of, this is such a largesse, I mean, I can't believe it. It just keeps people from, all they're going to do when they get this every month, we can sit on their butts. How much are they getting to sit on their butts? $170 a month.
Yeah.
For a family of 3. These applicants have applied hoping to get at least that crumb of cash assistance.
Right.
$1 million a month for the education secretary, but $170 a month for you is just a bridge too far, you loser.
Right.
But out of the pool of more than 11,000, only 167 people were actually approved and enrolled in the program, according to state data obtained by Think Progress. Meaning the state wouldn't turn over that data and Think Progress had to dig for it. Every other applicant was denied or withdrew, resulting in an acceptance rate of just 1.42%. Statistically speaking, it's more like a rounding error. So they basically have to round it to 100% rejection rate.
Right.
Because it falls within the margin of error, plus or minus 3.
Oh, yeah.
The numbers follow a disturbing trend in the state over the past several years. Between 2003 and 2010, according to a report by the Mississippi Low-Income Child Care Initiative, roughly half of the applicants to the state's TANF program were rejected. Already a large share of poor people denied assistance. But then, in 2011, what was happening in 2011? We had a black president. That's right. The rejection rate catapulted to 89% and has gradually increased every year since. States are generally incentivized to reduce their TANF caseloads, given that any unused money can be directed to other purposes, but Mississippi stands out for its astonishing rejection rate. Okay, there is an incentive to get people off of TANF because the money left over they can use for other things, like security details for sexual trysts on the state dime. Mississippi appears to be a large outlier, said Liz Schott, a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. No other state has a rejection rate above 90%. The closest is Texas, which rejected 89.7% of applicants in 2015. It does stick out like a sore thumb, said Nisha Patel, former director of the Office of Family Assistance within the Administration for Children and Families, which oversaw TANF. The numbers shock even people familiar with state and federal welfare programs. Matt Williams, research director at the MLICCI, recalled the sharp uptick in denials in 2011 really drastic. Schott said she didn't believe the data was actually valid until looking at the numbers provided by Think Progress. Patel said she was quite taken aback by the data. No one seems able to explain what's behind the enormous rejection rate. We've been trying to figure it out. The big question is why. You mean diverting funds from welfare recipients into other programs? Like, kickbacks to developers for a sports stadium, maybe? The state did not respond to repeated requests from Think Progress for an explanation of what changed, but it did send a statement saying, quote, upon review of our caseload, there are a significant number of TANF applications being denied. However, there are many reasons the denials are taking place. End quote. Think Progress says those include failing to meet eligibility criteria, unresolved non-compliance issues, an ongoing mandatory work sanction period, unverified compliance with upfront requirements, failing to provide necessary data, voluntarily quitting or being fired from a job for one's own behavior, failing to cooperate with child support enforcement, failing to show up for appointments, or voluntarily withdrawing an application. It's kind of hard to keep up with the child support payments when you can't get a job. And you're required to get a job, but you can't get a job. And then you get a job and, your behavior. You mean like black.
Yeah.
Officials have also not responded to state lawmakers who are asking the same question. It's been tough just to get information from the Department of Human Services on what's actually going on to explain why people are getting qualified. Or not getting qualified, said State Representative Jarvis Dortch, Democrat, who's on the committee that oversees the department. We have not been able to get any answers from them. He hopes to hold a hearing this summer to get better answers. Williams' organization has pored over all the details of Mississippi's TANF programming, came up empty-handed. We have not been able to isolate it to one particular piece of legislation or policy change. There are some factors that have made the process of getting approved for assistance more difficult for applicants. In 2006, the state passed legislation that requires an upfront job search. I do remember back in the day, I never got government assistance. I think I applied once or twice, but I always got a job before anything really happened with the application.
Right.
So, I'd be down on my luck and I'd go, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And weeks would go by and I'm still out there looking for jobs. I'm stringing myself by, and then I'd finally go to the agency and, sit there for a half a day or whatever and fill out the application. And then I remember one time I literally walked out the door and I got home and there was a job interview appointment for me, right?
Yep.
Which I got. So that happened to me, and I'm at an advantage. I'm an educated white guy.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
So I just remember that, part of the game, about the job search is that you go through the telephone book and you write down places that you said that you went to, but you never did.
There you go. Yep.
But I have to say, I never had to do that because I was fairly proactive, and I always had applications out and, maybe a dozen places, certainly a half a dozen or more. And so it wasn't hard to do that part of it. But Mississippi doesn't seem like a hotbed of high employment. You know what I mean?
Right.
And why is that? Because where are the jobs? I mean, you only get to do, I don't know, the Elvis Presley Jubilee once a year. That's a big job maker, for the week that you have the Elvis Presley Jubilee.
Yeah.
So what is happening in Mississippi, obviously, and why it's so difficult to figure out what it is, everybody wants to find out one thing that's the cause of this. But it's obviously not, because it's this mandatory work requirement, not being able to get a job because there are no jobs. And then we come up to that since 2014, the state put a drug testing policy in place that requires all applicants to be screened for drug use. If their answers to a questionnaire make them suspect, they must take a drug test in order to receive benefits. Some people may be rejected because they can't follow up on a second visit to complete the test, while others may simply refuse. Now, I actually have looked at numbers about this, not specifically or necessarily in Mississippi, but when people take drug tests, they aren't poor people on welfare. They don't have the money for the drugs. The state has other punitive aspects of its program, time limits, a cap on benefits beyond a certain family size. You got more than 3 kids, you get less money. And sanctions that mean if one person in a family loses benefits, everyone loses benefits. That's kind of like bombing the terrorist family, isn't it? That'll teach them a lesson.
Exactly.
Williams said, I can't imagine that would explain all of the drop in approved applications. None of these policies that were passed match up to the jump in rejections. Something else is going on. One possibility is that it isn't due to any particular policy change on the books, but a change in culture or goals that would not be officially reflected elsewhere. Yeah, we don't have it on the books that we reject black people at a higher rate, but we know them when we see them. When they come through the door, we know they're not getting it.
Right.
There's nothing on the books that says they're doing that, Wink. Okay, so Mississippi, of course, is falling steeper into poverty because of this. So while the state has to submit its plans for a large-scale policy changes to the Health and Human Services, the federal government doesn't have any authority to step in if things appear to be overly punitive. There is no minimum benefit level or certain threshold of families in poverty to make sure you're serving. But really, the review is just whether it complies with federal law, and that was by Patel. If Mississippi made decisions within the scope of federal law, she added, unfortunately, there would be very little that Health and Human Services could do to deter them. It's a case study in what can happen without oversight. Mississippi is a good example of so many problems in the block grant. They can't figure out why the rejection rates are happening at such high levels. But the extra money left over is going to something else because that's what block grants do. Thank you very much. Well,
Indeed.
And what do we hear constantly? The refrain: "Oh, too much oversight, too much regulation." And this is what happens when you don't have proper oversight, proper regulation. People aren't going to go with their better angels.
Right.
At least not this type of organization. And like I said, these policy changes, I think, are, the old policies coming back to the froth again. You walk in being black, you're not getting benefits. If you're black with 5 kids, if you get benefits, you get less money.
Right.
Okay, well, hopefully we can reverse that trend somehow by shining light on it, and that's what oversight is. And we'll have to talk about that and other stories tomorrow, and because we're really not only at the end, but beyond our broadcast period, even though we have a little bit of buffer. We have Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. In the interim, we'll be playing Battle of the Species by Annabella's Afrobeat Orchestra. Randy Rhodes comes up at 1 o'clock on the West Coast, 4 p.m. on the East Coast, and she's been on fire. And she's got the ability to keep the eye on the ball. And I think we would be well served to listen to her. And she has homework.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I would suggest doing the homework. You'll not only be able to have that argument with your crazy uncle on Easter, but you might even be able to hide all the eggs. Okay? I'm serious. You can do that. All right. Enough of that. We'll be back here bright and bushy tomorrow for the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center in the Angle of Repose edition of the After Show. And I would also suggest that you might as well just stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because who loves you, baby? Oh, and Wink, as Columbo would say, one more thing. I'll see you on the other side.
All right. We're out.